after the Jake Paul versus Anthony Joshua aftermath, I want to talk to you guys, and I want to give thought to the Gervonta Tank Davis fight. Gervonta was supposed to fight Jake Paul, but then Gervonta pulled out, and then Anthony Joshua came in. Now I have this question for y'all: do y'all think a guy like Jake Paul could have beaten Gervonta Tank Davis? I mean, when you look at the facts, let's look at it. Let's dissect this. Jake Paul had at least like 50, 60 pounds on Gervonta Tank Davis. Jake Paul came into the fight with Anthony Joshua at like 213. Tank is not a big guy. Tank probably 140 soaking wet. The biggest he probably can get to is maybe 150 at the most. And be still competitive at that weight. I don't think I think that the fight will be very hard for Gervonta Tank Davis. A lot of people think it would have been easy for Tank, but if you know boxing, you will know that there are weight classes for a reason. There's weight classes for a reason, and the size difference was too much for Gervonta. And I just feel like Jake Paul would have just walked straight through Gervonta's punches. This man was not going to feel anything. It was going to be like the way, Anthony Joshua was walking through Jake Paul's punches. It's the same difference. Gervonta does have way more skill than, Jake Paul. But sometimes just the size alone can overpower skill, And I feel like, someone like Gervonta, he's a slow starter. He's a very slow starter. I feel like Jake Paul, with his massive size, would have been able to, catch Gervonta with some good shots. It's different. It's different when you're in there with a heavyweight. I'm telling y'all, if y'all know boxing, if y'all ever been in the ring, you will know that, size does matter, and it's especially a size of that magnitude. You got these guys at the lower weight classes, 130, 140. They pull out fights if the fighter come out, 2 pounds overweight. So you can't sit here and say that it doesn't matter when you got that sort of thing happening. It's same weight. The only time that the weight is massively different is if you're a heavyweight. But it's a game changer. It is a game changer. The punches feel different at a heavier weight class. I feel like Jake Paul got used to being punched by bigger guys. And I know that Gervonta would not be able to hurt Jake Paul. Let's look at it. You've seen Anthony Joshua crack, Jake Paul. Now, answer this question for me, y'all. Do y'all think, someone like Gervonta Tank Davis could have took a punch like that from Anthony Joshua? Let me know. Because, that would be pretty bad. Gervonta is like, 140? Imagine little Gervonta Tank Davis taking a shot from Anthony Joshua.
I beg your pardon?
Yeah, it's not good. And Jake Paul took a few of those things, So, I just know, like, people who say that, it would have been an easy fight for Tank are delusional. It wouldn't have been an easy fight. If you'd have put money on either one of these fighters, you'd probably put money on Tank. You probably would have lost your money because, look, Tank wins his fights by knockout. He don't win his fight by outboxing people. And Jake Paul isn't that good of a boxer, but he has enough knowledge to be able to maneuver around the ring. He ran all night from Anthony Joshua, but he still made it very hard for Anthony Joshua to hit him. Now imagine him, stepping to Tank or circling around Tank and throwing those little pot shots that he like to throw on Tank. it only takes a few of those for someone like Tank to get frustrated, especially from like someone that hits as hard, as a heavyweight. Jake Paul is a heavyweight. He was a heavyweight for that fight. So, we can say that he has heavyweight power. We can say that he has heavyweight power. He might not have elite heavyweight power, but he has that type of power. Gervonta has power, but he has power in the lower weight classes. He has power. He can knock you out. He can catch you off guard. But it's different. It's different. There's weight classes for a reason. Let's follow the sport. I'm glad Tank pulled out the fight because I'm telling you, it wouldn't have been pretty. It wouldn't have been a pretty fight. It wouldn't have been as easy as people think it would have been for Tank. And maybe that was just destiny. Getting Tank up out of there before boxing would have gotten ruined. Even further than you know Jake Paul has already ruined it.
Shut that soft ass shit up.
And the best man
Shut
to
that
win.
soft. That's some soft ass shit. Shut that soft ass shit up. All that soft talking. I know you can do it, man. You got the.
But Shakur, that guy will put anybody to sleep outside the ring.